So just the other day, I went over 10 things that I wish I knew earlier in the new No Return game mode for The Last of Us, and since then I've learned a hell of a lot more stuff about this mode that would have definitely helped me to know earlier on. So today we're going over 7 more things I wish I knew sooner in No Return. Now the first one is actually in the settings, and this one is called the auto pickup setting. Now this is going to pretty much allow you to pick up all resources including ammo without actually having to press a single button. It will just pick them up when you go even remotely near them, and this is obviously very helpful in No Return when, especially in a mode like Hunted for example, sometimes you are being chased and you don't really have the time to just sit there pressing triangle and trying to pick up every item, so it is very, very helpful. This one is in the accessibility settings. Now, it might feel a little bit cheap to some people, so understandably not everyone's going to want to turn this on. For me, I've actually got it turned on for No Return, but I've got it turned off for the story just because it feels a bit less realistic in the story. If you don't want to turn this off though, what I will also say is that you guys can hold triangle to pretty much pick up all of the items in your area. So if there's 3 different things on a bench, for example, rather than pressing triangle 3 individual times and picking each of them up, if you just hold triangle, it will instantly pick all of those items up. So give both of those a try. It is definitely going to help you guys a lot when it comes to surviving a little bit longer in No Return. Now, the next one is actually also to do with the ammo and resources and stuff like that. Each of the maps actually have their own, I guess, set locations where resources and crafting parts and all that will pretty much spawn, and they are almost guaranteed to spawn in those same locations each and every time you're on that same map. Using the houses, for example, on that map where it is, the long grass and there's all the houses that are covered in vines and stuff like that. If you go into a house and you see that there is some resources on a table, well, the next time you're on that map, they're probably going to be there as well. There is only a set amount of locations where items can spawn, and therefore they're generally in the same locations. Now, it doesn't guarantee that there will be items in that spot the next time you go there. I believe it is still randomly generated as to what spawns in what location, and I don't think they always spawn in every single location. But like I said, generally speaking, everywhere you find an item in one map, the next time you're there, there is a very good chance there will be items in that same spot. So try and learn where these are, and it will definitely help you later on once you have learned all of those spawn points to pretty much just know where you're going to find the resources, and it's going to save you guys a lot of time looking for those resources. Now, the next one is to do with the dead drop boxes that are, I guess, one of the mechanics that are part of this game. As you guys will see around each map, they're not always there, but generally speaking, they do tend to spawn on probably like 90% of the maps. And they're these big, I guess, the blue like mailboxes that are around the map. Now, what these require you to do is to place one crafted item into there. It will tell you when you go up to it, it will kind of just show an image of what it wants. And sometimes it can be 1 item, sometimes it can be 2, sometimes it can even be 2 items, and you'll need to actually give 2 of each item, for example. But what happens is that when you actually do that, it will send another resource to the hideout, so that if you do finish that encounter, when you're back at the hideout, you'll actually get a reward for doing so. Now, generally speaking, the rewards that you are given are pretty damn good. I've done this before and gotten a freaking flamethrower for free, simply for giving, I think, 1 medkit. So it is almost always worth doing this. There is some risk involved because like I said, you could give a medkit and it could give you something that is not really that useful. There is a little bit of risk and reward involved in this mechanic, but for the most part, it is almost guaranteed to be worth it. The only time I would recommend to not do it is, like I said, if it's a med kit and it's your last one and you're low health, that is definitely not worth doing. But in almost any other case, it is always worth trying to do these dead drops. Now, before we go any further, if you guys are enjoying the video so far, be sure to leave a like down below. And if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications. There is plenty more content coming on No Return. I'm actually going to be doing a guide on every single character in the game, so make sure you don't miss out on that. Now, the next one is once again to do with the resources and I guess the crafting items and stuff like that. In this game, they are obviously one of the most crucial elements to No Return, because without those parts, you cannot craft medkits and stuff that you need, especially for those later encounters. Now, this tip is that every time you spawn into a new map, you should look pretty much behind you or just in your general area wherever you've spawned, because that is generally speaking where a lot of resources are going to be. It's kind of like they put them there to, I guess, give you some kind of easy stuff to get early on, and obviously there is that kind of like 20-second buffer at the start of each encounter. So spend those 20 seconds just looking around your general area wherever you've spawned. It's not always like that on every single map, but pretty much any map where you spawn inside, if you just look behind you or just in your general vicinity when you've spawned in, most of the time there is going to be some really good resources there. So make sure you don't forget that. A lot of people will just kind of spawn and run straight ahead and try and get to a good spot. And if you do that, there is a good chance you are going to miss a lot of resources. Now, the next tip is not honestly so much of a tip when it comes to helping you survive and stuff like that. This is more just something that I think a lot of you guys are going to enjoy knowing. And this is the fact that when you do the custom run mode, you can actually set a seed. And if you use that seed over and over again, it's going to do the exact same run every single time. Now, obviously, part of the fun of No Return is that each run is completely different. So it probably sounds counterintuitive just doing the same thing over and over again. What I mean though is if you find a seed that is really fun, for example, I've been using the seed 123, which has got some of my favorite maps and modes in there early on. It kind of just allows you to have a bit more say in what happens. So like I said, for me, that 123 seed kind of gives me some maps that I enjoy. Whereas if I just do a standard run, sometimes the first map is something I just don't want to play. So this is kind of just good to know for if you want to do a run, but you don't want to have all these random mods and all that kind of thing, and you just want to have a little bit more control, you can pretty much guarantee what is going to happen in that run by just trying out a bunch of different seeds. And once you find one that you like, if you just keep putting that in over and over, the run will be exactly the same every time. Not only the maps and the modes, but as far as I know, it will actually be the exact same in terms of the weapons that spawn in the trading post and all that kind of stuff. So like I said, it's not really going to help you do any better, but that is just something that I think a lot of people are going to have a bit of fun with. Now, something else I really wish I knew early on, and unfortunately I had to learn this the hard way, is that when you get to a boss fight, it is very tempting to kind of just go all out on the boss. But honestly, in most cases, you should pretty much just be setting yourself up early on in that boss fight in a way that you are pretty much just removing the other threats. Every boss fight has the actual main boss, but then they obviously have the regular grunts. So if it's, you know, the Rattler team, there is the Rattler boss, but there's also just regular grunts around the map too. As you guys can see in this gameplay, I accidentally stumbled across the boss. I was actually trying to play stealthily and that just did not work. I ended up taking out the boss, which wasn't too bad, but then unfortunately I still had all the other grunts to deal with, and that resulted in me actually losing this encounter and therefore the entire run, despite having actually beaten the boss. So whenever possible, you want to try and set yourself up that you can focus on the boss without all of the other, I guess, enemies and stuff being a threat, whether that is being stealthy at the start of a round to try and take all of them out and then leave the boss for a 1v1. If you're in the arcade bloater boss fight, for example, you can't really do stealth in that mode, but putting some trap mines and stuff like that at the beginning of the round can kind of defend against the other infected that come. Once you put some trip mines down, you can just kind of focus on that bloater, and obviously those trap mines or trip mines, whatever they're called, will take out the other enemies, just allowing you to kind of focus on the boss. So like I said, it is tempting to just go all out on the boss, and obviously if you kill the boss, that's good, but you've still got all those other enemies to deal with. So the point I'm trying to get at is to essentially just play it a little bit smarter. Don't always go straight for the boss, or if you do, make sure you're set up in a way that when you do kill the boss, you don't have 20 enemies chasing you down like I did in this Rattler boss encounter. Now, the last tip is actually to do with unlocking new allies in this game. Obviously, if you guys have played enough, you'll know that the allies are very, very solid in this game. It's a lot easier when you do have an ally with you, and they can pretty much be the difference between finishing an encounter or dying, because a lot of the time they will not only get a lot of kills themselves, but they also just distract the enemies, and the enemies will kind of focus on them, or you can either be stealthy or just take them out with ease. Now, something that I don't think everyone's going to know right away is that not every character is actually available as an ally by default. When you start out, for example, I believe there is only maybe Dina if you're playing as Ellie, and then if you're playing as Abby, it's just Lev. But as you get further down the line, for example, once you've unlocked Tommy and Joel, they don't actually just instantly become available as allies. You do need to actually complete some challenges while playing as those characters to then unlock them as an ally. So it is definitely worth trying to look at your challenges, seeing what you need to do, because obviously the more allies that you guys have, the better that is for you. When it comes to characters like Tommy and Joel, they do generally have better weapons, which is obviously going to help you out a lot more as well compared to the characters like Dina, for example. So be sure to check out those challenges, and like I said, don't just assume that Tommy and Joel will be available once you've unlocked them, because you do actually have to do some specific challenges with those characters. But anyway, guys, that is it for 7 more things that I wish I knew sooner in The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered's new No Return mode. If there's any tips you guys have as well, be sure to leave them down below to help everyone else out. Fallout 2. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.